Ooh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, and the dreams that you dream of once in a lullaby.
Welcome back to the Art Antiques Radio Show. This is your chantress of everything valuable and beautiful, Elizabeth Stewart. And I'm here with Thomas Chalk, a newcomer to our community, who's brought a really very, very unique design aesthetic to us and has been working these past 6 months on setting up a gallery space that's wonderful. It's called Design Infusion Gallery, East Coda Street as it hits Milpas. And I wanted to say that the space itself is so peaceful and so calming. And it's big enough that Thomas has actually suggested to me that groups that need a space to meet in or to have cocktails in, he's very open to that possibility. And you can reach him through his website, www.designinfusiongallery.com. Before we went to the break, I asked Thomas a question I ask a lot of artists: where does this inspiration come from? Because it's very unique. What do you think, Thomas? What kind of line speaks to you and why?
Well, basically, actually, I had planned to have the gallery called Design Infusion East and West, because that's what my other website is for, to show my house in Hawaii. But then everybody said that's too long, we can't do it, so we have to do Design Infusion Gallery. So basically, I have two different inspirations, one from the West and one from the East. The person from the West, he's an artist by the name of Donald Judd.
Yeah.
He's originally from Texas. He's died, unfortunately, already, and unfortunately, I can't afford any of his work. But they're very minimalist. He does a lot of stackables that are
the cubes,
repetitive.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I did I did a takeoff on his thing where I have 5 cabinets, these metal cabinets that I, in theory, recycled and brought to a new life. And they're hanging on the wall, and I painted them 5 different colors, the colors of the rainbow, and they're stacked up, and they're just there to make you happy. And the other place is I'm of Chinese descent, but I've always liked Japanese things, and being in landscape architecture, I always wanted to go to Japan. And so when I went back to community college, when I was trying to find myself, there were a lot of people that were from Japan. I said, well, I should go. But then things sort of didn't work out. But then I finally said, well, if I don't go now, when am I ever going to go? So I jumped on the plane and went over there. And I always wanted to go to this garden. It's called the Ryoanji. It's a UNESCO garden that was designed about 400 or 500 years ago. It's the premier Japanese dry rock garden. And
what does that look like? What's a dry rock garden, Thomas?
It's the rock garden isn't probably more than maybe 1,000 square feet. It's not very big. It's in the small courtyard when you have to go up through this winding Japanese garden with a beautiful lake on it, and you go up the path and under these huge Japanese maple trees, up the stairway, and then you go into this little entryway, and there's this viewing platform, and it's only 13 rocks. And what was really interesting was that
tell me more about that. So it's 13 rocks, and are they set on other rocks, or what does it look like?
No, it's 13 rocks that are in a sea of sand or gravel, and I think they're raked every day. And you if you go and Google it, I'm sure you can find it. And it's simple. And I went in there, and the first time I saw it, I cried. It was just so beautiful. And so what I did was I was there for about 2 weeks. And so what happens is I take the bus up. I wake up really early in the morning because nobody wakes up early. And I take the first bus up there, and it takes me about 45 minutes. And it turns out that if I got there at 8 o'clock when they opened, I almost had the garden to myself for 15 minutes, all to myself. And so I'd sit on the viewing platform that was about maybe 3 feet above the garden, and you look over this thing, and I could hear the birds flying and talking to themselves, and the wind, and they had a beautiful cherry tree, and it was in the springtime, and you could see the branches waving, and then you look at the background, and they had this wall that had all this. It had just aged through all the centuries. And
500 years.
yeah, and you'd look at the beautiful textures on this wall, and it was just so amazing. And I'd just sit there, and it was really crazy because I had never written poetry in my life, and so I started writing some poetry, and it was just really, really great.
And that was an inspiration to you, that sort of peaceful line, the textures.
Yeah, I think it was not so much that. It's a matter of just finding my place somehow, and some saying, this is just wonderful. It's something special in your life that you get to see, and you just have to appreciate the moment. And
yeah, the beauty can do
Yeah.
that. It can really bring you back to yourself.
yeah, and so it's just one of those things, and somehow this thing, I have this gift that God gave me somehow to be able to see things, and what I wanted to be able to do is be able to share my vision of doing things with all of you in Santa Barbara, somehow, in some way. And part of that is when you come into the gallery, one of the things you notice is that I have beautiful bouquets of lilies, white ones and yellow ones and pink ones, and it's a fragrance that's just sort of somewhat overwhelming. It's not intoxicating, but it's just there, and it's just part of creating an atmosphere that's really nice, where I just want you to come in and just sit and relax and just get away from the rush of every day, and think of this place as your home, where you can enjoy all the things that I've collected that in theory I can share with you, and then I can buy other things to share with others, and it's a matter of sharing things. And it's really sort of interesting because I was doing the gallery and I didn't know what was happening, and it's sort of neat because I take people's art that they've created, and then I combine it with nature that God created. I have plants and flowers and orchids all over the place, and then I combine the two things together, and so you have these two different ways of creating, and I give them my little tweak, and then it becomes my way of sharing these environments.
Exactly. So where do you find your artists?
Well, it's really sort of interesting because part of the thing is that I just go on the internet and I call people cold, and a lot of them say, "Who are you?" And you mean you've only been in business you haven't been in business yet? What are we doing talking to you? You know what I mean? Come back to me later on when you get established. And so it gets frustrating sometimes because I one of my favorite loves is ceramics.
Yeah.
And I found that probably 50 or 60% of the people that do ceramics are functional ceramists, and they're okay, but there's not that much that's exciting. Then you have a few people that do installation work that goes in museums, and that doesn't really fit in people's houses. And so I'm working with this very narrow group of people that I'm trying to comb through, and then I find some people, and sometimes I don't. And the matter is that I find these wonderful people, and I bring them to Santa Barbara to share with you.
It's absolutely wonderful. So the idea of the gallery, that it's a combination of found items and very, very simple, almost minimalist aesthetic, and yet very warm from the flowers and the tea. And so it's so unique to us. How did that happen? I mean, where did it come from? Was it something that you picked up in Hawaii, or this idea of having a place that was both a home and a gallery? Where did that come from?
I guess, well, I don't know. It sort of just came somehow. It's sort of like, how do you do things?
Yeah.
How do you draw, or how do you drive a car? It just sort of happened with me, and it's sort of interesting because my color palette was really more earthy before, and it's trying to get a little bit more color into it now. But then I really like simplicity because, I mean, maybe it's a male thing. I don't really know. But I really to have simple lines and have really earthy tones. And then there's not this clash of where you have all this red or yellow in your face, or bold designs. And then it accents your eyes too much. It's too excited. And what I do is have